next speaker is well known to everyone in the crowd today. He's a regular blogger and international speaker. He was awarded MVP for his contribution to the integration community. Currently works as a consultant for DevScope and specializes in integration scenarios both on-premise and in cloud, utilizing BizTalk Server and Azure. You may also know him as a great author of BizTalk book, BizTalk Mapping Patterns and Best Practices. And his integration skills match the ones of Cristiano Ronaldo in football, not forgetting about the good looks. There must be something magical about Portugal. Coming to us from sunny Oporto straight into rainy London to give us a session on BizTalk Server Fast and Loud. Please welcome Sandro Perreira.
So during the last years, I've been called several names. The BizTalk Wiki Ninja, BizTalk Wikipedia, the Mapper, BizTalk Mapper. Okay? If you didn't see the book, you can still get one over there. And also the stencil guy, so I'm now a visual also MVP. There's like 1,000 stencils about integration. My name is Sandro Perreira. I'm working at a consultant company in Portugal called DevScope, an amazing company that we are gold partners of Microsoft in several areas. I'm a public speaker. I have my own blog sandroperreira.com, that was recently refreshed with the help of Sarabana Kumar. And again, I wrote nice books about maps. I have a lot of content about BizTalk. First of all, I need to say, I really love BizTalk, man. Really love it. We are integration guys. We still go to Azure, all the stack, but I really love this framework. This product is awesome. It's here to stay alive for many years, not going to die soon. Every client that I go is say, is BizTalk dead? No, it's not. It's here. And of course, I like you guys also, and I want to also offer you some stickers. So during the break, please reach to me. I have a Superman sticker. And why a Superman? Last year, I created a T-Rex sticker, if you remember. And old people say to me, yeah, BizTalk is like a dinosaur, it's dead, no? So I now say, no, okay, now it's a Superman. And see, there is a small cloud there. We have the power of the cloud. And I think you saw this guy. And this one. Just, they now remember that not bet with me is not a good option. Yes, you did it. And my session is about BizTalk. I call it Fast and Loud. It's optimization performance. And if you see some similarities with Nino Cordella, it's coincidence, nothing more. Okay. So again, BizTalk is here for the last 17 years. Okay, and I still find clients that don't have the BizTalk jobs running. It seems silly. It's easy stuff that you can do in BizTalk, but every single client I'm going, they don't have the job running. Okay, and it's up to you also to advise the clients, to remember them, that this is one of the most important aspects of BizTalk, okay? So BizTalk can be whatever you want, man. It can be a Ferrari, it can be a Formula One, it can be my car, the Toyota Benz is a nice car, a family car, no? And it can be a truck, lot of load, but yeah, it can perform lot of messes, but not quite fast car. But yeah, depending on your needs, and how much you want to spend it, BizTalk can be whatever you want, okay? By default, BizTalk, and when I mean by default, you install next. Hey, BizTalk is installed, no? It seems like a good sport car, but in fact it's like an old car. If you push the accelerator, it will break. So you need to go to the mechanic to fix it. It seems like you can always run during the weekend, slowly and so on, no? For example, you saw an Nino Cordell session about a simple content-based routing solution with a map on the receive port and just a REST service calling, request response. And if I try that a synchronous way, one request each time, I got more like these metrics. So 0 messages per second. Normally, a message will take me 1 second response time. But doesn't mean that BizTalk only processes one message. If I use, for example, the BizTalk benchmarking wizard that is made by the guy that wore a nice green shirt, Mikkel, you can see that I actually can run 110 messages receiving and sending at the same time, no? So it can process several ones, but the response of each message is more like 1 second, no? So my session will be what you need to be aware and do, not changing the BizTalk code. I'm not going to Visual Studio. I'm just saying what you need to be careful to optimize these and faster response times and even consume more message at the same time, okay? So if you take like a car, you see that there are multiple layers, pieces. You have the chassis, the engine, the battery, fuel injection, and so on and so on. No? So car chassis is like BizTalk Server. It needs to have good aerodynamic to be fast, no? But the engine is a SQL Server. You can have a very good BizTalk Server installation, a good machine, or several machines, but if you don't have a good SQL, you will have bad performance because the engine is SQL Server, okay? The tires are the hard drivers. You need to have fast hard drivers, multiple hard drivers if you want really performance. And battery, fuel injectors is memory and CPU. You need to have good memory and CPU to consume more message. And let's say that exhaust pipe is the network and the virtualization layer. That's really important, okay? So let's go for the SQL Server. And you know the SQL admins. And it's rarely see a SQL admin that really knows BizTalk. And it's up to you to also to remind them the rules of BizTalk, okay? So BizTalk servers needs to be configured and running. And remember that the two most important jobs are disabled. You need to configure them and enable them for them to start running. This is because they need a path for you to make where you want to place the backup files and the transaction log files, the backups, okay? So you need to configure these two guys and enable them. Also remember that if the SQL Server agent is not running, the job are not running also. So BizTalk will stop running soon, okay? It will run, but it reach a point that will break, okay? The database will become huge and the performance go way down, okay? It seems like basic stuff, this, okay? You can say, yes, Sandro, this is basic. So why I'm seeing this in all the clients I'm going? Every single client make mistakes on this, okay? And again, it's up to you, the consultant, the architect, the developer, remember them also, that they need to have this job running. Even in my, and I am a developer, guys, I'm really a developer. And even in my developer machine, I have these jobs running. Because if I really want to have a good developer environment and also have playing a little with performance, I need to have these jobs running. Otherwise, my machine will get slowly, and I don't know why. It's my code, it's the engine. So you need to also be careful in your dev environments with this stuff. It seems silly, but yeah, treat BizTalk Server database like a black box. Don't go there and touch. I see most of the clients creating maintenance plan to back up the BizTalk databases, to shrink, to reindex, all of this crazy stuff that you can do in BizTalk. Don't get me wrong, they are right doing that, but for normal databases, for application databases, normal SQL databases. For BizTalk, you shouldn't, you can't do that. It will have impact in your performance. You probably screw all the environment, and you lose Microsoft support. So be very careful when go inside to change something in this database, okay? Even selecting and other stuff, be very careful, okay? Size really matters in BizTalk. All the databases should be small because BizTalk wants to be, it wants to have small databases to be really fast. For example, the MessageBox is like a BizTalk queue. All the messages that are being processed in BizTalk are there. Once they are processed, they are gone. Okay, they are moved to tracking database or other databases. So this is like a queue that needs to be always clean, always small. And for example, 5 GB of MessageBox database is starting to become a large database. Okay, it's normal to have 5. Sometimes it's okay, but we can also go to 20 gigabytes MessageBox database, no problem. But if you have a 20 gigabyte database, please split them in different files. For example, create 8 files of 2 giga each file. And then you still can have a huge database, but with performance, okay? The default auto-grow settings. So normally default auto-grow settings are like increase 10 megabytes or 1 megabyte and 10% of the transaction log. It can be okay for normal databases, but for BizTalk, that's not the correct settings. You should have, for example, like 100 megabytes increasing and 100 megabytes increasing logs also, for example, okay? Also, if you install BizTalk as a default installation, the size of the database are small. It's like less than 100 megabytes. Pre-allocate to the databases. You know that BizTalk can go very fast for 100 megabytes to almost 2 gigabytes databases. And all this increasing, because each time SQL Server needs to increase, it needs to stop, increase, and then start, okay? This can be avoided if you pre-allocate, for example, 2 gigabytes to the MessageBox, 2 gigabytes to the DTA, because they are the most important databases. And then you have better performance, at least in the beginning, okay? Yeah. You can also find, regarding to BizTalk best practice and disaster recovery, a white paper that I published on BizTalk 360. It's free. Go there and download it. You have plenty more information. And I have kids now. I know what it feels to have in this situation. So consider to have dedicated SQL resources to BizTalk Server. And I mean resources, I'm not meaning only an instance, okay? Because, yeah, you can isolate BizTalk Server in a different instance, but then if you put in the same SQL Server, SharePoint, CRM, and other strong products of Microsoft, and you don't pre-allocate dedicated memory to that host instance, you are sharing memories. And you know that SharePoint is a killer. It will kill every system around in memories and size of databases. So you should dedicate resources, an instance, memory to that, dedicate memory to that SQL instance, and other stuff like that, okay? And remember that BizTalk has some particularities about some settings, SQL settings that you cannot change. That, for example, SharePoint allows you to change, and so on and so on. So if you use in the same host instance, it will affect also BizTalk performance. You know that all systems, including BizTalk, use TempDB. If you connect to SQL servers, if your database are in SQL servers, all of them use TempDB. For performance, you should sync and split the TempDB in multiple data files. Okay, there are some rules to associate the TempDB. Unfortunately, I don't have my notes because my screen is black. I don't remember all because I'm not a SQL guy. But if you went to performance problems, this is one of the first that you need to consider, is to split the TempDB in different data files to have performance. That is some of the tips that I have for you for SQL. Regarding to networking, virtualization, and hard drive, speed defines everything, okay? So I recently went to a client that it was one of the worst environments that I saw because each time I opened Visual Studio to test a map, I had to wait 5 minutes for them to present the result. I was struggling to find the reason why. I had more memory, I had more CPU, I tuning everything that I need to tuning in SQL layer and BizTalk layer, and still I had problems with the machine. And all of that was because of the virtualization layer. They were running in a VMware environment with the whole framework of VMware. I don't know, old versions. I don't really know that layer very well. And the guy just moved them to a recent update firmware of VMware, and suddenly everything starts running again, fast, like instantaneously. So you need to be careful about the virtualization layer. Sometimes most of the problems are there, okay? Regarding to hard drives, consider that at a minimum, you should have 3 drivers on SQL Server, okay? For the data files, for the transaction logs, and for the TempDB. Okay, the TempDB can be associated with the data, but at least create also another one for the backups. Don't put SQL Server saving the backups on the same drive that you are putting your data in the transaction log. Because BizTalk will back up your files, but will never delete the files from the hard drive. Okay. In the backup job, you see that the fourth step is deleting the history. That only deletes the history from the databases. Okay. It will never delete the physical backups. So be aware of that. You need to create like a maintenance plan or a job to delete that files. That is okay for you to do. But never put that in the same drive, because it will fill up the drive and everything stop it. And I already seen that happen plenty of times. If you want, and remember, if you want real, in the critical environments, you want real performance, you may think you have like 8 hard drives. You have to have like MessageBox data in one drive, logs of the MessageBox in another drive, the DTA in a different drive, and the logs of the DTA in a different drives. The rest of the database, it's okay, you can put in a different drive, and the transaction logs in another drive, so 6 for now. MTV in another drive, 7. And backups in another drive, so 8 hard drives, if you really need performance. But don't go crazy and do that in all the environments, because sometimes you don't need that kind of performance, okay? So depending on your needs, you need to be smart and think what to do, okay? And even you can increase. You can start with 3, and if you see if you need more performance, you have problems in that layer, you just scale, okay? Networks. So if you have a production environment, you probably have a multi-server environment, not a standalone. I know some of them that are standalones, but normally they are a multi-server environment, and you need to remember that BizTalk needs to connect to SQL all the time. So consider to have good networks, LAN networks, and that will help you a lot. And if you can, remove unnecessary protocols from your network. For example, IPv6, normally I don't use it, so I disable, or file print share or something like that. Just remove it. They are there. You don't need it. They will impact a little the performance, okay? And probably Microsoft don't like me with this slide, but remember that hardware is cheaper than licensing, especially BizTalk licensing. At least these days. Scaling out the BizTalk tier is not always a solution. I went to a client that has like 8 BizTalk boxes. Each of them are 8 GB of memory and 2 cores, okay? And the SQL was also like 4 or 5 SQL machines with 60 GB each. Each time they had performance problem, they create another BizTalk box of 8 GB memory. So instead of fixing, they are actually putting more heavy work on the SQL, and the SQL is engine, no? So I told to them, if you don't know, scaling out, it just creates more box in the BizTalk layer. I just spoke with the guys and say, okay, let's reduce the number of machines. Let's put 2 BizTalk boxes with 64 GB memory, a lot, at least 8 cores each, and a SQL Server with 2 boxes with 128 GB memory, and also several cores. So I was scaling up the BizTalk layer and scaling up the SQL layer also. And of course, they need to buy more hardware. but the cost that they save in licensing was more than the hardware. And that kind of configuration would also be more performant than the configuration that they have in the on-place. So scaling out is not always the best option. You need to consider that you can scale out SQL layer, you can scale up the BizTalk layer, but you actually can also scale up the SQL layer, adding more boxes, and even in crazy scenarios, I mean crazy scenarios because I've never done that, you can create multiple MessageBox. And to do that, you need to pass from 1 to at least 3 MessageBox. So you need to have all of these in attention to optimize your environment, okay? And you think that, okay, I've done it all, let's play. Not really. Still missing the BizTalk layer. And most of the people don't really understand that layer also, okay? So by default, BizTalk Server comes with one BizTalk host. Remember that this picture, only one guy doing all the job, okay? In my session, in my demo, it will not really have effect because I'm running one call each time. So the guy can do his job very well, not affecting the performance because you have 2 types of performance in BizTalk. The response time of your service and how many messages you can process at the same time, okay? So this guy can process 1 message easily, but if I throw 1,000 messages, then he will be working all night, very slowly, okay? So consider also to create multiple host instances, dedicate host instances, for example, for tracking, very important one. You only need 1 tracked host instance, at least 2 for reliability. But if you have like 6 boxes, you don't need to create 6 host instances for tracking because the tracking is only made by 1 host, even if you have all of them running. So you just need 1 or 2 for reliability. But consider separating, for example, receiving hosts, sending hosts, processing hosts, that's the basic stuff. Then you also have the 34 bytes, 32 bytes, because some of the adapters run only on 32 bytes. You need to be careful about that also. And if you want to isolate some solutions, because it can affect other, or you need to go faster, then you can isolate in different host instances and tuning these host instances, okay? But don't go crazy and create like 100 of those instances, okay? It's also bad for your environment. I spoke with Todd, I think he's not here. I think the maximum you should have is like 25. I don't know if it's really true, but it told me more or less that. So don't go crazy and start creating host instances for everything. And again, you have all these host instances, but sometimes you need to be faster. You need to process more faster response. So this is when you need to tuning the settings of hosts, the memory, how many threads it can execute, the minimum threads, the pooling interval from the database, and that I will show you in my demo. But again, don't go to your environment and say, okay, I will tune in this to the maximum, reduce the pooling interval at the minimum, because you can do that, but if you don't have a good SQL, it also affects your performance, because then you are going to call SQL all the time, and that will affect also the performance, because you are trying to kill your engine, okay? So be very careful. Again, you need to think in your scenario, and do I really need that or not? There is no the proper solution for you. There is not the right, the bad. You need to fit all of these in your requirements, okay? The default settings can be awesome for the most of the guys, but in some particular scenarios, you need to go and tuning. And that's when you go and tuning, okay? So let's switch to my, if I can, let's switch, okay, to my demo. So again, I have a very simple solution. Receiving, send, content-based routing with a map on the entry. I'm just calculating the response time for each call in a synchronous way, okay? I call, wait, call, wait, call, wait, okay? So by default, I have my service running here. And then if I start, oh, come on, man. I see that normally is almost 1 second. Probably slow, but I'm running this on the default application instance, only using one instance with the default settings. And I see that my response time is more or less 1 second, okay? So if I create multiple host instances for receiving and sending, I already create with the default settings. Let's see the performance improvement. Okay, let's just go to my receive location and say, okay, I'm receiving, and okay, I am transmitting. Okay, and I think I got this right. Yeah, no. Sorry. Again, if I test this, so you see that, yeah, almost half sometimes. So I didn't make nothing, the same solution, the same settings. I just have different host instances, one for receiving, one for sending. Okay? So now I will use only one host instance, but with highly tuning, okay? Crazy, I went to all the crazy configurations. So I went here, let's say settings. Where is my BizTalk server application? So you see that the normal settings are like 500 milliseconds of pooling. I just went and say, okay, I just reduced to the minimum possible. Orchestration, I don't care. I put the max engine thread to the maximum also. And I went to the host instance and I just say that maximum worker threads to 100. So I increase all of these values. I'm not going deep on details. You can go look afterwards what they do, what they should do, what's the reason for that, and so on. I just start showing. You can go there and tuning these options. And if you try now, let's just configure with BizTalk Server application. That is my tuning host instance. If I do the same test, you see that I pass from 1 second to 120 milliseconds, almost 10 times faster, okay? Again, with only configurations. So now go more and say, okay, I will create a receive host with tuning these settings and another send with the same tuning settings. So my BizTalk man, this is a Superman, okay? Superhero. And if I do the same test again, let me warm up. I will see that I have a better performance. Small one, but still a better performance. Now it's less than 100 milliseconds. Okay? So to finish, I just want to say, try yourself. People reach to me and say, oh, I would like to start writing, produce some content to the community. Be yourself, start writing, even if it's stupid stuff, write. My most viewed post is how to restart IIS. See? And the second is also very stupid, but yeah. So trust you, start to write, and maybe you are here speaking at this event, okay? Just trust in yourself. And thank you. I hope you enjoyed the session.